right, and welcome to Fast Break Breakfast NBA Podcast. My name is Keith, here for a solo interview episode. The full episode with John and Chuck will be out later in the week. If you missed last week's episode, don't go back and listen to it, because during the recording, the Woj bomb and ShamWow dropped that the Grizzlies were letting JB Bickerstaff go and were moving Chris Wallace to a scouting position, and the live reaction was incredible. It was one of the things that it makes me smile. I went back and listened to it. It made me smile. I thought it was pretty, it captured the emotion of the moment perfectly. We got some facts wrong. John Hollinger sort of being demoted as well. We were pretty confused by his new title, but he's going to be doing less, I guess, hands-on GMing. He's going to be living in Atlanta more, where his family is, and having an advisory role, but not less of a hands-on role. But anyway, if you missed last Thursday's episode, go back, pause this one, go back, listen to that one. I think it's really entertaining, and it was a fun show to do and to listen to. Anyway, today's show is with Cassidy Hubbarth from ESPN, talking about the NBA playoffs. First weekend of the NBA playoffs, pretty good. My predictions, I think, are not going to be very good. I thought we might have a boring first round, but thanks to the Spurs, thanks to the Magic, thanks to the Nets, all winning, good stuff. Also, the Trailblazers holding seed. I already regret going with the masses and also thinking the Thunder would win that series. Obviously, don't want to overreact too much to just one games. There are tons of teams that have won game one and then lost the series, but it does look like we're going to have some interesting, entertaining first round series, and for that, I'm pretty excited. If you want to support our program, I highly recommend playing Draft, the Draft app. It's a daily fantasy game where you do a snake draft or a blind auction draft to pick your team. So it's not a salary cap league. You're competing against other players, and you guys have to do a draft every time you want to play. And I'm telling you, last year, I won a bunch of money in the playoffs doing this, way more than the regular season. And the same thing happened. Both days came out as a winner on Saturday and Sunday. Maybe just more casual folks are getting involved who don't know what they're doing. I don't know what it is, but last year I won almost every day playing in the playoffs. This year so far, 2 for 2. If your fantasy seasons are over, this is another way to play that, and you can do it every day. I know I'm going to be playing Draft again tonight for the 2 games, the Sixers, Nets, and Warriors, Clippers. Hopefully Montrezl will pay off for me once again. But if you're watching these NBA games and you want something a little extra on the side, I recommend Draft. Download it from the App Store. If you use our code FASTBREAK, they'll give you a free $3 entry into any game. So free to try, easy to use. Download Draft. Draft.com/FASTBREAK. Use our code FASTBREAK so they know you came from us. All right, now let's talk with the great Cassidy Hubbarth. My guest today covers the NBA for ESPN in many different ways. She appears on Hoop Streams on social media and is a return guest on Fast Break Breakfast. Cassidy Hubbarth. Cassidy, how's it going?
It's going great. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you back. You have playoff fever? We got playoff fever over here.
I mean, how could you not? Especially given the twists, turns, and drama of the first weekend.
That's right. The first weekend was exciting. I kind of thought maybe it wouldn't be. But the first day, definitely on Saturday, lots of upsets. Before we get going, I should congratulate you. You're a new mom. That's exciting. I don't feel like
yes.
I knew or anyone knew you were expecting, and then you just showed up with the baby. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's definitely, the best thing I've probably ever done in my life. So, but it's also, are you a parent, Keith? I'm not sure.
I have 2 children, a 4-year-old and an 18-month-old.
So it's all the feelings whenever someone asks me how's it going, and I'm saying I'm feeling all of the things. The highest of highs, and my joy is unlike anything I've felt before, but also it's a challenge that I've never experienced. So it's a beautiful chaos.
I like how you said it's all the feelings. I agree. It's almost too many feelings. I think I'm like
At times it is.
I'm kind of like a stereotypical stoic, borderline emotionless male. And then when I had my kids, I'm like, what is this sensation? I think I hate it.
Yes.
I cry.
Yes.
I cry watching movies. Some movies are too intense now. Like I used to watch all kinds of like really violent movies, and now I'm like, this is horrible. Like I can't do it. And yeah, I don't. It is awesome, but also like I'm also worried all the time now, and I don't enjoy that.
All the time. Yeah, not to lay down on a couch right now, but yeah, the anxiety is real. Because it's a constant state of worrying because, I've been on this planet for 34 years worrying about just myself and, my husband, but now having to worry about this little human who can't, they can't do anything.
They can't do a thing.
they don't feed themselves.
No.
They don't, change themselves. They're not that smart yet.
No, human infants incredibly unself-sufficient. No,
yes, exactly.
Yeah, the whole anxiety thing. My wife makes fun of me by saying some of that. She's like, some of that, Keith, is you just now have some of the normal amount of empathy that other people have always had. Like she's like, she's like, you maybe aren't the most caring for other people. And now you have.
I was laying down on the couch. I think you are right now.
No, I do like that I can now understand like sad songs. Like, oh, this sad is. I'm now crying. This is why people cry at shows or whatever. And yeah, whatever brings that true meaning. That's special. Yeah. But I'm still I'm waiting for the first conversation because right now it's just a lot of gurus and gagas. Right.
I know people are like, oh, the whole time they're babies, you're waiting for them to talk, and then when they start talking, you want them to stop talking.
Yeah,
so,
I've heard that. It hasn't happened yet to me. I guess my oldest is 4.5, and it's still great that he can talk and communicate his wishes and have conversations. And so far, it's still very, very fun. I haven't hit the age where they're like, yeah, you need to stop talking. I'm tired of this. Anyway, we start off our shows, as you know, talking about breakfast. Have you had a good breakfast recently? Playoff breakfast? Anything?
Oh, okay, good. Because I was hoping you were going to ask me about breakfast today. Because speaking of mommyhood, I haven't gotten to breakfast yet. But about her breakfast.
Right.
I'm trying to think if I will say my biggest cravings during my pregnancy, which feels like years ago, was pancakes. And nice. There's a place in New York called Bubby's that have these amazing pancakes. They're unlike any pancakes I've had before. And if you're going to splurge on pancakes, these are the pancakes to splurge on.
Yeah.
They're called the James Beard pancakes. And I'm not sure. I don't think you get a James Beard award for pancakes. Maybe I'm wrong. But they're called the James Beard.
James Beard is I think it's a chef and restaurant awards that are national. I think the James Beard Award goes to...
But I'm not sure if you get one for pancakes.
But maybe these pancakes won them.
I don't know if they're making a statement. Yeah. I don't know. I should do a little more research on them, but they're called the James Beard pancakes, and they are the consistency of it, the fluffiness, the size. It is just... they're the best pancakes I've ever had in my life.
That's pretty fantastic. What was the name of the place? We see it was Bubby's?
Bubby's.
Bubby's,
yeah.
Okay.
They have one in Tribeca, and they have one in... Village, I believe, for
That's
all
great.
you New Yorkers.
Yeah, anyone in the New York area. I might try that out next time I ever get there, once my children are grown and I can travel.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's actually been a lot of pancake-related content. PJ Tucker, apparently a big pancake man. I know the Ringer's been pushing a lot of pancake content. I get a little nervous when I see other outlets doing NBA breakfast themes. I'm like, kind of our corner, but...
Hey, man, it's getting crowded.
That's right.
Doggy dog world.
That's right. So if you were watching the NBA playoffs, you saw Cassidy on Saturday at the Sixers Nets game. One of the interesting storylines from that game was the crowd was booing very loudly and notably really early in the game. I taken my kids to my parents' house. I was watching the game at my parents' house, and like the Nets go on a run, and I think it was in the first quarter. And I was like, that booing is so loud. Like maybe it's my father's speakers or something. But then apparently it was. It seemed like they were booing like crazy. What was that like in the arena? Did it seem abnormal to you when you were there? Like, why is everyone so angry on Saturday afternoon?
We know Philly fans are tough. I mean, they booed Santa Claus. So I think their reaction was to the Sixers going 0 for 11 from 3, and then Joel just kind of going 0 for 5 and chucking it up, knowing that he's destroyed this team inside.
Yeah.
I think it was really, I mean, as the reason why I guess Philly fans are impatient is because they're knowledgeable. They're paying attention to the game. And it really wasn't, it didn't feel like the Sixers were at that point in time early on giving their best effort. They weren't, it's hard for, so Joel came out, he obviously like made an impact early inside. He got, Jared Allen and some foul trouble. And so that was feeling good. And then when they started launching threes and it was miss after miss, it quickly turned because it was like, well, what's the mindset here, guys? So was it abnormal? Absolutely. And then in the fourth quarter, they were still in striking distance. And then it just kind of, aside from the boos, they left in the middle of the fourth.
Oh no.
It was a very, very up and down emotional game for both teams. So when I say it definitely was odd to hear that in like game one, but it's because the expectations are really high. I mean, this is arguably, the most talented starting five in the NBA outside of the Warriors, and they don't care that they've only played 10 games together because, they've put in the time through the process, and right now it's about the production. So look, I think that's where the boos kind of came from.
I like how you turned it into, you said the booing you turned it into a compliment to the Philly fan base by calling them knowledgeable. That's why you're a professional. That's good stuff. I just thought it was awkward. First quarter. First playoff game.
Yeah.
Like, why are we so upset?
Yeah.
Like, I understand, all right, if you lose that second home playoff game and then it's like, guys, don't lose to the Nets. This is terrible. I don't know. I thought it was pretty funny. Do you think it is? I mean, their shooting was terrible and like abnormally terrible. I think they were 3 for 25
really bad
from 3. And you assume that's not going to happen again, but also this team's strength is not shooting. They don't have very much depth, and it does seem like Joel Embiid is a little banged up. Do you think that's what we're going to get?
And that's the problem.
Yeah, is that going to be the problem the whole series?
It begins and ends with Joel Embiid because this team cannot contain him, but he also can't be sitting out on the 3-point line launching 5 threes in, a quarter. If he can get to the free throw line and, he's what makes them, in his words, unstoppable.
Uh-huh.
But he also has to get a little more production out of his point guard in Ben Simmons. So it's and JJ Redick and Tobias Harris. So the only person who showed up was Jimmy Butler.
Uh-huh.
And you can't have that. I mean, Boban Marjanovic, contributed off the bench. So he kind of made up for when Embiid was out. But what makes this team scary and, how they can beat a scrappy team like this Nets squad is making sure that Embiid is himself. And I just don't know if he is. I mean, granted, he played a lot of games with everybody leading up to this game about if he was, like how bad his knee was. But we know he plays through pain, even though people will say he hasn't played basically a full season at all, and his injuries, he's injury prone. He tends to fight through injuries. Now, he may be injury prone because he's always hurt, but he does fight through injuries, and I'm not sure if this is if him playing game one is going to hurt him long term, because he said leading up to this game that it's felt worse. Actually, that even though the scans are good, that the pain has been worse. So, I'm interested to see tonight, how he's going to be feeling in this game, because they need this game. They need this game too. They cannot go back to Brooklyn down 0-2, and they can't lose this. They can't lose this series, because that means this team and what they've gone through the last couple of years, and see it blowing up, because it's probably going to be reflective on obviously Brett Brown, but they have 2 free agents that they probably want to try to keep. There's a lot of pressure on this team, and it's interesting because they're going up against the Brooklyn Nets, and it couldn't be a bigger difference in the feeling around each team. Like, the Nets are surprised, and they kind of develop their players, whereas like the Sixers are the face of tanking, and then grabbing star free agents, and all the pressures on the world, and they put it on themselves too. Elton Brand, Brett Brown saying we have to get past the second round, so they're in some trouble even getting past the first round.
Yeah, the emphasizing those two franchises makes it, I think, adds extra pressure. I don't think the players think about this, but I think we fans think about this like, all right, so if you lose, the Vegas line is now just minus 180 for the Sixers to win this series. So they're not even heavy favorites to win the series now after dropping game one, with those concerns about Embiid. But looking at this team, like, this is, on the one hand, you can almost make it a referendum about team building. You have the fun cultish fans of the process. This team went through a lot, and they decided to bottom out, try to get as many lottery picks, and then they cashed in their future assets to trade for Jimmy Butler, to trade for Tobias Harris. And if they lose in a playoff series to an underdog team that has no lottery picks on their team, they only have one player on their team, D'Angelo Russell, who was selected in the top 10. Like, by any team. So, like, this is a team that did it without picks, did it completely separately.
Right.
And so that's the storyline, which adds the pressure to the fan base. We're like, this would be really,
well, it's
really
not just
bad.
the fan base.
And the front office, I guess, too.
From the top down. And into the coaching staff as well.
Yeah.
It's certainly interesting. The juxtaposition between these two teams' mindset, and sometimes playing free could be the difference.
Yeah, and it seemed like on Saturday.
And you know what? Let's give some credit to the Nets.
Sure,
and they played really well.
Yeah,
that is a balanced team. And in any championships we've seen, it's about how teams are gelling. Obviously, I'm not saying that this is a championship level team, but this team really, really likes each other, and they know how to communicate, and it's a whole team effort. Yeah. Led by, D'Angelo Russell, who has completely transformed, who he is and how he is perceived in this league. I mean, he is budding into a real star.
We were talking on our show last week about D'Angelo Russell, about an idea of this, the idea of this maybe being his like honeymoon season, because he's still this season, he's exceeding expectations. He's obviously in the most improved player conversation, but he has to get paid next year. So will next year his salary might be matching of what they need him to do, and maybe he might not be able to live up to it. So what do you think about this being like maybe the golden era for D'Angelo Russell, and after this honeymoon's over, he now has to show up to work and like fulfill what might be a very large contract?
I don't know. We'll see what happens with free agency this summer. I would not leave Brooklyn out of the mix of getting one of those big free agents. I think players are starting to see that front office and Sean Marks and Kenny Atkinson, they kind of know what they're doing. So aside from that, with his big deal. I mean, I think this year has been a really big growth process for him. What I've collected is that he really has been putting in the work off the court, learning how to be an NBA professional off the court, meaning, getting the proper training, making sure his diet is right, making sure he's, responsible with how he spends his time in and around the facilities. So that type of shift, I think he's understanding. And I think being around veterans like Damari Carroll and Jared Dudley has been incredibly impactful on him. The word around D'Angelo before was that he was immature and that he, really wasn't putting in the proper work and maybe caught up in the LA lifestyle. And, New York's not an easy city to kind of contain yourself either, but he seems to really be focused and understanding the weight that is on him right now, that he can be a star in this league. So as far as, if we're in a honeymoon period, okay, I think if we're going to qualify this as a honeymoon, I think maybe they're in for a really great marriage.
All right. It's very optimistic. I like it. Two other teams lost their game one that were favorites in this series. The Thunder, who were actually the lower seed, but still they were the Vegas favorites coming into their series, and then the Denver Nuggets, who also looked pretty tight in their loss to the Spurs. Of those two teams, Denver and Oklahoma City, which one do you think is maybe in the most trouble in their first round?
Well, I don't like the fact that Paul George says he's still, that shoulder is, in bad shape, and that he could barely lift it heading into this game, because they need him. He's what makes their team go. I think you can't ever count out a Greg Popovich-led team, and back to dynamics of the mood of each team. I think Denver is lacking experience from top to bottom, and the Spurs have that experience with DeMar DeRozan, leading the way for their team, for their players, and then of course Greg Popovich just knows how to coach in the playoffs. So I think Denver could be in some real trouble. OKC, I think it's dependent on how healthy really Paul George is.
Do you think, I know not everyone is a spiteful person, but do you think DeMar DeRozan and maybe Dwayne Casey, when they saw Toronto lost game one, they kind of felt something like, okay, all right, it's not our fault. Not our fault. You guys lost another one.
Sure, but I also feel like they probably felt some type of way when the history was brought up that, because they were part of all those game one losses. So they probably didn't want to be dragged into that either. So you can look at it both ways.
Yeah, they kind of, I guess, also had their bad histories, dragged through the mud once again. So I guess these playoffs, so I guess one of the stories, we talk about, is Paul George hurt? Is Joel Embiid hurt? Blake Griffin now going to miss the playoffs. Kind of a very discouraging thing. You hate to see the injuries mar. Yeah. Do you think these teams, I know the Pistons were fighting for a playoff spot. Should they have done, or could they have done more resting down the stretch? It seems like the Sixers knew they were going to be, pretty much locked into that 3 seed a while ago, but still Embiid was playing kind of a few games here and there. Should these teams maybe have done more?
No, he wasn't though. Embiid missed a lot of games down the stretch.
Yeah.
So, they did their part of resting him. As far as Blake Griffin, it came down to the last day. Mm-hmm. So it's tough, because I think when you have someone like a Blake Griffin and you're in that middle zone of purgatory, or, getting in the playoffs, I think you try to get in the playoffs. I think that middle of the conference is really hard when you're dealing with an injury, but you can't tell Blake Griffin not to play when you guys have a playoff bid in place, and Dwayne Casey, this is a team that's not rebuilt. They have actual players on this team, so Yeah, I think that's a tough call for them, and it's unfortunate. Obviously, I don't think that they had a shot against the Bucks, but you at least want to see them, be able to compete at 100%.
Yeah. Finally, I didn't put this on the rundown, but last year you hosted the NBA Draft Lottery show on ESPN. Are you doing that again this season?
I am not doing that again this season. I will be hosting hoop streams actually during the conference finals and finals.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I unfortunately I'm not doing that this year.
That's all right. Well, it seemed
but
like
it will be exciting to see.
I was going to say it seemed like an incredibly difficult gig because you like the show is taking a 1 minute or a list of 14 names being read, like make it a 30-minute show. Like let's just do this. But yeah, I am very excited. I'm like obsessed with the lottery odds and the.
I know it's crazy. We'll see. I mean, and especially with a prize like Zion, awaiting, it's definitely going to be an interesting lottery. I think everybody is going to be wondering what happens there. And then they got Patrick Ewing representing the Knicks, so that's pretty interesting. Hopefully we make sure there's no frozen envelope.
That's right. Who's have the Lakers said that they're representative? I kind of think LeBron should be there.
I mean, Keith, I don't even know if they know, what day it is there right now. They got a whole lot to figure out. And I think, who they're sending to the draft lottery is probably low on the list right now.
What do you think LeBron is up to? He's on the beach somewhere, right? We assume. What's LeBron doing right now?
Yeah.
He's middle of April, not playing basketball.
Yeah. Savannah posted something where he was, living his best life dancing in sandals. So good for him. I mean, he hasn't had a playoffs off and, what is it? 13 seasons, 14 seasons. So good for him.
Yeah. Hope he can.
34 years old, has more miles on him than any player. So take his time.
That's great. Well, Cassidy, thanks for your time. Tell us about the hoop streams. Where can we watch that? That's on Twitter and it's on Instagram.
No, it's just on Twitter.
Just on Twitter?
And and it's 30 minutes nonstop. We're still trying to figure out the timing for the playoffs, but usually we're on about an hour before tip. We may be on half an hour before tip for the playoffs, but it's going to be a number of people joining me, from Amin El Hassan to Richard Jefferson to Stack to a lot of different personalities, and then we're going to be on site for all of the games and taking fan questions, and it's a pregame show for NBA Twitter. So we know NBA Twitter loves to talk, so we try to give them a voice there.
That's perfect. And you just is a hashtag hoop streams or on your Twitter account?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So we will see you there and interact, and that will be awesome for all the big NBA basketball fans. Cassidy, thank you so much for your time. And
thanks, Keith.
Look forward to talking with you again soon sometime.
Okay, sounds good. Appreciate it, Keith.
All right, thanks to Cassidy. Make sure you follow her on Twitter at Cassidy Hubbarth. You can follow me on Twitter at Fast Break Break. Support our program by downloading the Draft app. Had a real good weekend running that Draft app. Again, playoffs is for making money. Draft.com/fastbreak. Use our code FASTBREAK when you download the app to get a free entry into a $3 money game. You can also support us at patreon.com/fastbreak breakfast. All right, you guys are the best. Thanks for listening. And remember, breakfast is the most important thing.
Yeah, never apologize for being G&G. Fair break, man. You understand?